The spring warmth of May 1861 brings no cheer for the United States. As of May 1, 1861, 8 states have left the Union and are in the Confederacy. The previous month had seen the commencement of hostilities between these 8 Confederate states and the United States. Fort Sumter at Charleston, South Carolina, is now in rebel hands, but Fort Pickens off Pensacola, Florida, remains in United States control. We will zoom closer to the capital region. The most recent crisis, the danger to the capital at Washington, has passed. Maryland's loyalty keeps the capital from being subsumed into the Confederacy. A large garrison of new volunteers has secured the capital city. On May 1st, Maryland's Governor Hicks is at Frederick, Maryland, a much more pro-Union city than the state capital at Annapolis. Maryland's governor is working strongly in favor of the United States. Baltimore had recent riots, but Benjamin Butler's United States forces are at the Relay House just outside of Baltimore. Order is returning to the Baltimore area. In the previous month, pro-Confederate agents had destroyed railroad and telegraph lines leading north from Washington. However, Butler's men have restored the train and telegraph service between Annapolis and Washington, and Baltimore's communication and rail is in the process of being restored. On May 2nd, Maryland's legislature adopts resolutions permitting United States troops to move by rail through Maryland to protect the capital, an official affirmation of Maryland's support for the capital. The recently sabotaged train service north of Washington is restored. Trains are now running from Washington to New York City. Likewise, the sabotaged telegraph lines in Washington have been restored, and the capital is again in communication with the northern states. We will zoom back out. By May 2nd, Norfolk, Virginia is reporting a vigilant shipping blockade. Thus, by early May, Lincoln's blockade is shutting down major ports like Norfolk. Meanwhile, out west, at Cairo, Illinois, Colonel Prentiss has at least 3,000 United States troops. Across the Ohio River, the state of Kentucky declares its neutrality. Kentucky will not raise Confederate troops, but she will also not tolerate an invasion from Illinois. However, Colonel Prentiss has reported that many arms are landing at Columbus, Kentucky, and at Paducah, Kentucky. Also on May 2nd, at Wheeling in western Virginia, merchants meet in favor for the Union. The western mountain region of Virginia is loyal to the United States. Wheeling is in northwest Virginia, but we will now zoom into the Norfolk area in southeast Virginia. I have removed some of the modern development to make the landscape more like 1861. Norfolk, Virginia is here. May 3rd. The United States yet maintains a critical stronghold in Virginia. At Fort Monroe, across the water from Norfolk, the United States has some 1,000 Massachusetts men. On the opposite side of the river at Norfolk, the Confederates have 5,000 Virginia defenders. The critical water outlet between Union Fort Monroe and Confederate Norfolk is called Hampton Roads. We will zoom back out. On May 3rd, ominous signs are occurring in Raleigh, North Carolina. The state legislature calls for a convention on secession, and North Carolina's governor advocates for North Carolinians to organize a military camp. If North Carolina joins the Confederacy, then Virginia would be geographically connected to the other states in secession in the lower South. On May 4th, at Memphis, Tennessee, large numbers of Confederate troops under General Pillow have assembled, despite the fact that Tennessee has not seceded. Rumors circulate that the rebels at Memphis are intending to attack Prentiss in Cairo. On the same day, in Wheeling, Virginia, the Westerners of that state once again meet in large numbers, denouncing secession. Delegates are appointed from Western Virginia to organize in favor of loyalty to the United States. On May 6th, in Little Rock, the Arkansas Convention votes 69-1 to dissolve the United States Constitution and secede from the Union. Arkansas is the 9th state in the Confederacy. We will zoom in to Tennessee. On May 7th in Tennessee, a state that many were certain would remain loyal to the United States, the legislature in Nashville approves secession. However, Tennessee's process involves a popular vote at a later date. So Tennessee is now in limbo, with its state government voting in favor of secession, with a future popular vote necessary to finalize that separation at a later date. While Tennessee is not yet formally out of the Union, the state legislature appropriates $5 million for arms for the Confederacy. The Tennessee state government also calls for 55,000 volunteers. Many in eastern Tennessee, however, are pro-Union. Senator Andrew Johnson is at Knoxville, advocating for the preservation of the Union. So Tennessee is in a strange limbo period in May 1861, with the state legislature approving secession, while a prominent state senator at Knoxville opposes it. We will zoom out and then take a closer look at the wider capital area. On May 7th, fortune falls positively for the Union. Maryland's legislature, now at Frederick, votes unanimously against a convention for secession. That critical border state's loyalty is now confidently held for the United States. May 8th, the restoration of the rail line from Baltimore to the capital allows newly created United States regiments from northern states and their supplies to arrive almost daily into the capital. May 9th, a Pennsylvania regiment arrives at Baltimore. 3 weeks after a major riot in Baltimore, United States soldiers are once again in the city. We will step back to a wider view. By May 9th, Confederate General Ruggles is at Fredericksburg, Virginia. The rebels also have forces at Harper's Ferry. On May 10th, near St. Louis, Captain Lyon's Union forces strike against Camp Jackson, capturing a Missouri rebel force. The rebels had attempted to secure the St. Louis arsenal. It's a major setback for pro-Confederate forces in Missouri. However, in St. Louis, musket fire erupts between federal troops and a raucous crowd, and several citizens are killed. May 11th, the Department of the Ohio is organized. This department consists of the area between western Pennsylvania all the way through Indiana. It is headed by General George McClellan. Across the Atlantic on May 13th, Britain, a major importer of southern cotton, states that it will remain neutral in the conflict. Most British newspapers support the United States, with the exception of the London Times, which foresees a long, terrible conflict. The Confederate aristocracy had assumed that Britain would side with their cause due to Britain's dependence on southern cotton. However, Britain had an oversupply of cotton, so British textile manufacturers already had large stocks of cotton. By this time, back in America at Charleston, South Carolina, the frigate USS Niagara is blockading Charleston Harbor. British cotton merchants are turned back from the port. Neutral vessels at Charleston will also be given a reasonable time to depart, but nothing else will be allowed into the port. We will zoom into the wider capital region. May 14, Benjamin Butler's forces are in Baltimore. Butler pens a proclamation to the citizens of Baltimore telling them that the United States will ensure the city's protection. Now that Butler has secured Baltimore, the capital city is safe from being cut off again from the north. By now, there are some 35,000 Union soldiers in Washington. The capital city is the rendezvous point for all troops east of the mountains, and very quickly Washington becomes a fortified bastion of tens of thousands of Union soldiers. On the other side of the Potomac River, it is believed that there are at least 20,000 Confederate troops in Virginia, defending the line from Norfolk in the southeast to Harper's Ferry in the northwest. May 15th. Governor Hicks of Maryland is responding positively to Lincoln's request for troops. Maryland regiments are raised for the Union. Also on May 15th, at Arlington, Virginia, just across the Potomac River from Washington, Robert E. Lee's wife, Mary Anna Randolph Custis Lee, evacuates the Lee Mansion. We will zoom back out. On May 20th, North Carolina secedes, becoming the 10th state in the Confederacy. The Confederacy is now a large, unified geographic region connecting the Deep South to the Upper South, the Atlantic coastline extending now from Texas to Virginia. We will zoom into the Chesapeake. On May 21st, Butler's forces proceed from Annapolis to Fort Monroe. Also on May 21st, Richmond, Virginia is selected as the new capital of the Confederacy. so the Confederate capital will relocate from Montgomery, Alabama to Richmond, Virginia. We will move into Fort Monroe in southeastern Virginia. As a reminder, Fort Monroe is here and Norfolk, Virginia is across from it. The waters between are Hampton Roads. The James River is here. Richmond, the new Confederate capital, is just up the James River. May 22nd, Benjamin Butler is now at Fort Monroe in southeastern Virginia. The Union infantry at Fort Monroe are joined by a large flotilla of ships. Meanwhile, the rebels at Norfolk construct a battery at Sewell's Point, at the mouth of the Elizabeth River, directly across Hampton Roads from Fort Monroe. Norfolk, aided by new works at Sewell's Point, is a well-defended Confederate post, but Norfolk and the James River at large are now blockaded. The flotilla ships want to knock out the rebel works at Sewell's Point. Captain J.H. Ward's flagship, the Freeborn, has already fired upon the rebel works at Sewell's Point. The other ships are preparing additional attacks on the rebel fortifications there. May 23rd. 3 slaves escaped to Union lines at Fort Monroe. The slave owner demands the return of the slaves. But at Fort Monroe, General Butler engineers a brilliant argument to refuse the return of the runaway slaves. Using the Confederacy's own language on slavery, he considers the runaways' captured property a supply item that will not be returned to the enemy. Thus, at Fort Monroe, Butler devises a way for the Union Army to take in runaway slaves while avoiding the emancipation arguments that might alienate the border states. The precedence of Union Army camps receiving runaway slaves will continue through the war, and Fort Monroe will quickly become a safe haven for runaway slaves. The Union Army uses the word contraband to describe runaway slaves in their camps. The United States government quickly approves of Butler's contraband policy. We will zoom back out and then move into the capital region. On May 23rd, Virginia's voters support the earlier secession ordinance passed by the legislature. Technically, Virginia needed this popular vote to finalize secession, but the state legislature had already been acting as if the process was complete. May 24th. With Virginia's popular vote for secession passed, the United States begins incursions into Virginia. U.S. troops under Mansfield cross the Potomac River and secure Alexandria and Arlington. In Alexandria, several regiments control the town. The rail station there is secured, the beginning of the Orange and Alexandria Railway, which extends down into central Virginia. But in Alexandria, a tavern keeper refuses to take down the Confederate flag. A New York soldier, Elmer Ellsworth, pulled the rebel flag down but was killed by the tavern keeper. Ellsworth becomes the first well-known Union casualty of the war and a martyr for the cause. We will zoom back out. May 26th. The warship the Brooklyn arrives at New Orleans. New Orleans, the largest port in the South, is now blockaded. Mobile, Alabama, is also now blockaded. We will zoom into the Chesapeake region. May 27th. The United States devises a new department to oversee operations in Virginia east of the Appalachian Mountains. Irvin McDowell will head this department. So McDowell manages eastern Virginia, while McClellan's Ohio department manages the middle front beyond the Appalachian Mountains into the Midwest. In Virginia, reports emerge that numerous bridges on the Orange and Alexandria Railroad have been destroyed in order to prevent federal troops from riding down into the heart of Virginia from the rail station in Alexandria. By May 28th, in Arlington, Virginia, Robert E. Lee's mansion, Arlington House, is in possession of the United States Army. It is made into a Union Army headquarters. May 29th. Captain Ward's gunboats are at Aquia Landing on the Potomac River. The rebels have constructed battery works to prevent Union shipping on the river. The USS Pawnee and the USS Thomas Freeborn open fire on the rebel battery. The inconclusive contest will continue for a few days. We will zoom out and move into McClellan's department in Western Virginia. West Virginia does not exist as a state in 1861, so this mountainous area here is Virginia. The Ohio River is here. Beyond the river to the northwest is Ohio, to the northeast is Pennsylvania. Wheeling, Virginia is here. A rail line connects Wheeling to Grafton, Virginia. On May 29th, in Wheeling, Virginia, Colonel Benjamin Kelly has a Union post comprised of loyal men from Western Virginia. So a Virginian regiment in blue uniforms organizes at Wheeling, Virginia in the service of the United States. This loyal Virginian regiment is en route to Grafton, Virginia, a critical rail junction through the mountains on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, where the rail line leads both back east and to the west. May 30th. Kelly's men disembark in Grafton. The rebel forces fled without a fight. Thus, McClellan's department successfully controls western Virginia, as well as the rail line leading across the mountains to the west. We will take a wider look. By the end of May 1861, the United States has made progress in the month after Fort Sumter. McClellan has largely secured western Virginia, the capital area is under Union control, and Butler has a large force at Fort Monroe, Virginia. Virginia has pressure coming from multiple sides. Maryland and Missouri have reaffirmed their loyalty to the United States. The naval blockade is taking effect, cutting off shipping in major southern ports. However, large numbers of Confederate troops are amassing, and the rebel fold extends from Virginia to Arkansas. Many are realizing that the conflict will be long.